What's up, everybody? My name is Brad, and today I've got another book review for you, and I'm going to be talking about I'll Be Gone in the Dark, One Woman's Obsessive Search for the Golden State Killer. And this was written by McNamara. This is a nonfiction book. I've never reviewed nonfiction on here before, so I'm not sure how much of a review this is actually going to be. It's not like I can critique this story or anything like that, since this is based on facts and truth, and the story is just, the story of what really happened in real life. But for those of you that don't know or haven't heard anything about this before, McNamara, the lady who wrote this, she sadly passed away before she was able to complete this book, and so part of it was unfinished. And her collaborators, some of the detectives and the DIY investigators that she was working with on this case, took her notes and the pages and pages of case documents and things, and they finished the best they could her story that she was crafting here. A little bit about the Golden State Killer. I had never heard of him before. I do remember when this book came out in 2018, I remember hearing it and seeing the title. But like I said, I'd never heard of the Golden State Killer before. This was a serial killer and a serial rapist who was active in California from 1974 to 1986. And like I said, this is nonfiction, sort of true crime. This is detailing all of his different cases and the hunt for him. It was a cold. All of the cases were cold cases. They never found out who did it. So this is McNamara's sort of search, along with some other investigators, into trying to find out who the Golden State Killer was. He was thought to have murdered at least 13 people, committed over 50 rapes, and burglarized over 100 different homes between that time span, a little over a decade, between 74 and 86. This was back before they had DNA testing, and he committed his crimes in different areas of California. And back then, the police departments and agencies, they didn't share information with other jurisdictions. So he actually went by different names in different locations. They didn't know it was all the same person. He was known as the East Area Rapist, the Original Night Stalker, and the Visalia Ransacker. And it wasn't until 2001, I want to say, when they started doing DNA testing, that the police departments and agencies finally realized that all these different crimes in these different areas of California were all perpetrated by the same person. And it was actually McNamara who coined the moniker of the Golden State Killer, sort of wrapping all these cases under one name for the one man who perpetrated all these things. This book, it's full of facts and details about these cases. Nothing gets too grotesque or too obscene. She keeps the dirty details to a minimum, but you still feel, you still get the grittiness and the essence of the crimes themselves. There's lots of interviews and things from different detectives and police officers and victims of these crimes. And like I said, I was fascinated with this, learning about this person who I'd never heard of before. It's odd to think that some people, or some serial killers like this, some will sort of become superstars, larger than life, like Ted Bundy, and then other people who commit just as many heinous acts and crimes, go unheard of. You don't ever hear about them. I guess maybe that's because they caught Ted Bundy, they found out who he was, and this was still cold case. They never solved who the Golden State Killer was. I did enjoy all the true crime aspects of it. Like I said, I found it fascinating learning about these different crimes. Just sort of the ballsiness of this guy to consistently break into homes. And not only would he do it with just one person home, but it would be couples. He would tie the man up and he'd have the woman tie up the man and then do the things to the woman. So he wasn't scared to have multiple people in the home. He would always break in at night and blind them, with a flashlight and sort of catch them off guard. He seemed like he stalked his victims and, knew when they'd be home, knew when people would be away, their daily routines and things. So not only, was he a murderer and rapist and things, but he stalked and controlled these people sort of in a way, which is really creepy and actually pretty scary. Sort of a funny story for this. I was about halfway through the book. I read this on audio. I listened to it on audio. This is the first audiobook I have ever listened to, and I enjoyed the experience. It was pretty good. But I was about halfway done, and one night my wife and kids were sitting downstairs on the couch watching TV, and it had been really windy outside that day. And I guess the wind blew or something. We were watching TV. I couldn't hear it, but I could hear the back door sort of creaking open. It sounded like someone was trying to get in the back door. And, I knew that no one was out there, but in the back of my mind, I sort of had that creeping dread thought that, maybe someone is out there. And that's because I was reading this book at the time. So it is creepy and sort of unsettling to think, that this guy was just able to break into so many homes, commit so many acts, and he went so many years without getting caught. Another aspect of the book that I enjoyed is it's sort of a memoir as well. Michelle McNamara, she puts a lot of herself in this book. She talks a lot about how she became sort of infatuated with true crime and cold cases. What sort of was the springboard for her to diving into that. It also talks about her sort of obsession with this case. I believe she worked on it for like 10 years or so, working on this case. She wrote different magazine articles and newspaper articles for it. She had a blog that she would blog about this all the time, and then she finally starting to write the book. And it sort of consumed her personal life, and she was obsessed with it. There's one part where she's talking about she's working out of her kids' playroom, and there's crayon drawings scattered across the floor and kids' toys, and there's just boxes and boxes of case files regarding this case, about these nasty murders and rapes and things like that. So it invaded her life, it consumed her life, and so that was also fascinating to read and to learn about as well. I guess this is sort of a spoiler if you don't want to know, but this book, Michelle McNamara, I believe she passed away in 2016. This book finally came out in 2018, and then 2 months after this book was released, they finally made an arrest in the case. They finally captured the guy who they believe was the Golden State Killer. And after I read this book, I read information about him specifically. I won't give you any information about him. You can look that up on your own if you want to. But it's still going on. I'm filming this on Sunday. You'll see this video tomorrow on Monday. But just a day or two ago, there's still stuff about his case going on. The police are wanting to take more DNA samples from him, and the judge allowed that. That was some news articles in like the New York Times and the Los Angeles Times and stuff. So this is still sort of an active, not case, but jury court case going on, which I find fascinating. And like I said, I had never heard about any of this before, and it's something that is still going on. My only really complaint about this, if you want to call it that, was that it does jump around a lot with the time frames. It'll start talking about one of the cases from like in the early 70s, and then it'll jump to present day. Michelle's talking about her own life, and it'll jump to a case in the 80s and then back to the 70s. So it did lose me a little bit at the beginning when it was jumping around so much. And that might be formatting or editing or however it might be, I'm not sure. That did throw me off a little bit. I did have to rewind a few times to see what the date was when we were talking about it. It's not linear at all. It doesn't start, the first case and work up to the second case. It goes back and forth a lot. But once I figured out it was doing that, I got used to it, and it didn't affect me as much. That's just a very slight criticism about it. Just sort of, it was all over the place with the time frames, and that threw me off a little bit. But overall, I gave this 4.5 stars, rounded up to 5 on Amazon and Goodreads. If you are into true crime, if you find serial killers fascinating, sort of these unsolved murders fascinating, like the Zodiac Killer and so on, then I really suggest that you check this book out. The audiobook, like I said, I read this on audiobook or listened to it on audiobook. The production value was great on here. I really like the narrator. I don't know what her name is. I apologize for that. But the introduction was done by Gillian Flynn. The afterforward was done by Patton Oswalt, who was Michelle McNamara's husband. And overall, it was a really nice production. But like I said, this is 4.5 stars, round up to 5 for Amazon and Goodreads. If you're into true crime and serial killers and all that kind of stuff, I really recommend this. I definitely think you should check it out. But that's all I have for you guys today. Again, my name is Brad. Thanks for spending your time with me, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.